Roads were buried, mountains collapsed, rivers shifted and changed. The officially reported death toll was over 36,000. The sky was even darkened around the world, which made sunsets to be a much darker red. Sometimes it feels like natural disasters are getting worse and more frequent. Some say it's because of climate change. Others say it's an act of God. Whatever the reason, natural disasters aren't something new. From a volcano eruption that was 100,000 times the thermal energy of the atomic bomb in 79 CE, to a river flooding in China that killed almost 1 million people. I'm Mike with List 25, and today we're looking at the 25 worst and deadliest natural disasters ever recorded. Part 2. 25. Minoan eruption, 1600 BCE. This volcanic eruption from the volcano Thera in 1600 BCE was so intense that it devastated the Aegean island of Thera and completely destroyed the nearby Minoan settlement of Akrotiri. The death toll was estimated to be anywhere between 30 and 100,000 people, but official records have little evidence about an approximate number due to how long ago it was. Gases that were ejected from the volcano caused a volcanic winter with its winds, and the sky held a tint of yellow for most of the year following the eruption. 24. Eruption of Mount Vesuvius, 79 CE. In autumn of 79 CE, Mount Vesuvius erupted with such force that it destroyed the entirety of the nearby city of Pompeii. It spewed molten rock, hot ash, and gases with such power that it's estimated that it had 100,000 times the thermal energy that bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki had. Large stretches of the city were completely buried in molten rock and ash, and there are still areas to this day that haven't been uncovered. The event killed 20,000 people, and it was nearly impossible to find any remains of those that died. In fact, since then, there have been less than 2,000 remains that have been found. 23. Antioch earthquake, 115. The cities of Antioch, Daphne, and Apamea were almost completely destroyed when a 7.5 earthquake struck Syria. Trees were uprooted and felled. People were thrown down to the ground. The Roman Emperor Trajan, who lived in Antioch at the time, was trapped under the rubble of his home. The earthquake killed an estimated 260,000 people, and the aftershocks could be felt for several days after the initial strike. The restoration of Antioch was started by Trajan, but seems to have been completed by his successor Hadrian, who was also trapped in the rubble of the destruction. 22. Damgan earthquake, 856. The 856 Damgan earthquake occurred on December 22, 856 in Iran, and it had an estimated magnitude of 7.9. The area of maximum damage spread across 220 miles of Iranian land and mountains. The towns of Revenu, Astan, Tash, Bastam, and Shahrud, and almost all the villages in the area were severely destroyed. Half of Damgan and a third of the town of Bustam were also destroyed. The former capital of the Parthian Empire, Hekatompelos, was destroyed. The city was left largely abandoned due to the intensity of the destruction. The aftershocks were felt in the affected area for several years following the earthquake. It's even said that the aftershocks caused another destructive earthquake in a different area of the continent. 22. Ganja earthquake, 1139. The 7.7 earthquake rocked the area of present-day Azerbaijan and Georgia and caused mass devastation. Miktar Gosh, an Armenian scholar and writer, quoted the Holy Bible to describe the earthquake. The number of people who died in the mountains isn't known, described as incalculable, but it's estimated that there were 230 to 300,000 people that died in the destruction. King Demetrius I of Georgia took advantage of the earthquake and looted the city of Ganja. They stole many artifacts and prized items, including the ancient gates of Ganja, which was utilized as a trophy. 20. St. Lucia's flood, 1287. The flood occurred on the 13th and 14th of December, otherwise known as St. Lucia's Day, of 1287. The flood affected areas in both the Netherlands and northern Germany, killing nearly 80,000 people. It was reported that at least 50,000 of the deaths came from Germany, as many villages were destroyed by the flood. Much of the land in the Netherlands was permanently destroyed, and the flood also caused a war that lasted for 200 years. 19. Hongdong earthquake, 1303. Every major temple and school building in the cities of Zhaocheng and Hongdong were destroyed when the Hongdong earthquake rocked the landscape. Entire villages fell apart due to the sheer force of the earthquake, and it killed over 200,000 people. It reached a magnitude of 8 by modern standards, though the number is an estimate due to the lack of information and measurements back then. The Hongdong earthquake is frequently listed as one of China's deadliest natural disasters. 18. Meio earthquake, 1498. Like many earthquakes off the coast of Japan, most of the damage is actually caused by the resulting tsunamis. This 8.6 earthquake is one such earthquake. It occurred at 8 a.m. on the 20th of September, and while there's no official death toll, as it was so long ago, it's estimated that there were anywhere from 5 to 41,000 casualties. The following tsunami was recorded in Suruga Bay and at Kamakura, where it destroyed the building housing the statue of the Great Buddha at Kotoko-in. The statue itself survived and has remained outdoors ever since. 17. Sanxi earthquake, 1556. Roads were buried, mountains collapsed, rivers shifted and changed. The landscape was literally changed from the Sanxi earthquake. It's estimated that a little over 100,000 people died in the destruction, but because of the shift in landscape, over 700,000 were displaced and left without anywhere to go. There was a mass migration where many more people died from sickness and starvation. 520 miles of landscape were left completely altered and destroyed as the earthquake reached a magnitude of 8 and is often referred to in historical Chinese documents as the Jiaqing Great Earthquake because it occurred during the Jiaqing Emperor's rule during the Ming Dynasty. 16. Hoei earthquake, 1707. This earthquake struck south-central Japan on the 28th of October, 1707, and was the largest earthquake to strike Japan until it was surpassed in 2011 by the Tohoku earthquake. The earthquake and the resulting destructive tsunami caused more than 5,000 casualties. There are even those who believe that the earthquake caused the last eruption of Mount Fuji. There was also a major landslide that was caused by the earthquake, and it remains as one of the 3 largest landslides the country has ever experienced. 15. Calcutta cyclone, 1737. The Calcutta cyclone was the first supercyclone on record in the North Indian Ocean. It was regarded as one of the most destructive natural disasters to ever affect India. If the reports are to be believed, the death toll reached upwards of 300,000 inland and at sea. While the estimated costs of the damages weren't officially recorded, they were described as extensive. Many ports and ships were destroyed by the rain and wind of the cyclone, causing devastation to trade routes for the British East India Trading Company. 14. Lisbon earthquake, 1755. 85% of Lisbon's buildings were destroyed, including famous palaces and libraries when the 7.7 earthquake struck Lisbon and surrounding areas. The earthquake struck on the morning of November 1st, 1755, and reports stated that it lasted from 3.5 to 6 minutes, causing rifts in the earth that stretched 16 feet wide. It was estimated that it killed anywhere from 30 to 40,000 people of Lisbon's 200,000 population. The earthquake caused further damage when it caused more disasters in the form of wildfires and a tsunami. 13. Great Hurricane of 1780. An estimated 22,000 people died throughout the islands of the Lesser Antilles when the storm passed through the islands from October 10th to October 16th. The hurricane struck Barbados as a Category 5 hurricane, with winds estimated at 200 miles an hour. It was the deadliest hurricane to ever strike the Atlantic, rivaled only by Hurricane Mitch that hit in 1998, and it wasn't anywhere near the destruction of the Great Hurricane. A league of ships were lost by the British and French naval forces, including 40 French ships involved in the American Revolutionary War. 12. Coringa cyclone, 1839. On November 25, 1839, the port city of Coringa on the southeastern coast of British India was battered by a tropical cyclone that destroyed the harbor and surrounding areas. The port city wasn't rebuilt, but some individuals who survived the disaster rebuilt their homes far from the coast. British officials named the area Hope Island, hoping to protect the city from future environmental disasters. 11. Eruption of Krakatoa, 1883. Earthquakes were felt in Australia when heavy seismic activity around Krakatoa began on May 20th, 1883. The eruption finally ended on the 21st of October later that year, with the intensity peaking around August 27th, when 70% of the island of Krakatoa was completely destroyed. The officially reported death toll was over 36,000, but it was estimated that the deaths reached into the 100,000s. However, the effects of the eruption were felt worldwide, with it causing tsunamis and earthquakes that reached other continents. It also injected the atmosphere with sulfur dioxide, which caused massive winds all over the world, an event known as a volcanic winter. The sky was even darkened around the world, which made sunsets to be a much darker red. 10. Yellow River Flood, 1887. For centuries, farmers in Qing, China built flood banks to stop the nearby Yellow River from flooding, but after hundreds of years going by with the river not being allowed to flow, the water rose, and eventually the flood banks broke and flooded the low-lying plains that surrounded near the city of Zhengzhou. The flood spread over 50,000 miles of northern China and killed at least 930,000 people. It's still regarded as one of the most dangerous and destructive natural disasters in China. Over 2 million people that survived were left homeless and with no resources. 9. Sanriku Earthquake, 1896. While the land destruction of this 8.5 earthquake was limited, it did cause 2 massive tsunamis that proceeded to assault the coast of Iwate Prefecture, Honshu, in Japan, that caused massive damage. The 2 tsunamis destroyed about 9,000 homes and caused at least 22,000 deaths. The waves reached 125 feet, which would remain the highest on record until waves from the 2011 Tohoku earthquake exceeded that height by more than 6 feet 7 inches. 8. Messina Earthquake, 1908. The cities of Messina and Reggio Calabria were almost completely destroyed, and between 75,000 and 82,000 people died when a 7.1 earthquake rocked the area around Sicily. At least 91% of the structures in Messina were destroyed, and 75,000 people were killed in the city and suburbs, as the city was nearly completely leveled. The shoreline was permanently altered, as much of the coast sunk several feet into the sea. 10 minutes after the earthquake ended, the aftershocks caused a tsunami to rise out of the water nearby. Towns and villages along the coast of Sicily were assaulted by high waves, causing more death and damage. 7. Banqiao Dam Failure, 1975. In the beginning of August 1975, Typhoon Nia made landfall in China, and it was on August 6th that communication with the Banqiao Dam in Henan, China was lost. Soon after, on August 8th, the water at Banqiao rose to 117.94 meters above sea level, which was just 0.3 meters higher than the wave protection wall of the dam. The land that the dam protected began to flood quickly. The waves reached 23 feet high and spread over 6 miles wide. It was reported that 85,600 to 240,000 people died as a result of it breaking, although the official figure is 26,000. Official figures were altered by the Communist Party of the Chinese government at the time, and they wouldn't talk about the disaster to the public and forbid any news outlet to report on the incident. 6. Andhra Pradesh Cyclone, 1977. The 1977 Andhra Pradesh cyclone was a devastating tropical cyclone that hit Andhra Pradesh in November 1977, killing at least 10,000 people. Some reports estimate that the death toll could be even as high as 40,000. In the most affected areas, they saw storm surges as high as 20 feet, and the destruction that it caused led to the government of Andhra Pradesh to take drastic measures to improve the region's disaster management. The next cyclone that occurred there in 1990 showed that there was a massive improvement in disaster management, effective warnings ahead of time, and the use of better meteorological equipment, which dramatically reduced the death rates in the area. 5. Manjil-Rudbar Earthquake, 1990. Widespread damage occurred to the northwest of the capital city of Tehran, including the cities of Rudbar and Manjil. The total area of devastation was measured to be 20,000 square kilometers, which is equal to over 7,000 square miles. It's estimated that the earthquake cost over $8 billion in damages. The estimated casualties reached close to 50,000, but an additional 60,000 to 105,000 were injured, and over 400,000 were left homeless. 4. Bangladesh Cyclone, 1991. The cyclone made landfall in southeastern Bangladesh around high tide, which was already 18 feet above normal. Winds exceeding 135 miles an hour whipped against the coastline for upwards of 12 hours straight. The tropical cyclone is one of the most destructive and deadliest cyclones ever recorded. It caused at least 138,866 deaths and about $1.7 billion in damages. The US and other countries carried out Operation Sea Angel, which was one of the largest military relief efforts ever carried out. In the days after the storm, homeless Bangladeshis overcrowded shelters, and many storm victims were unable to find shelter. Because of this, Bangladesh improved its cyclone warning and shelter systems. The government also implemented a reforestation program to mitigate future flooding issues. 3. Russian heatwave, 2010. During 2010, Russia experienced dry, hot weather, starting around late May and lasting until early June. This caused a massive drought and wildfires that caused a heat wave. That summer was the hottest summer Russia had ever had, and 56,000 people died from the smog and heat wave that the fires caused. The Russian government censored news outlets that were reporting on the disasters. Because of this, there was no way to give a mass message to evacuate. Volunteers were essential in the effort to put out the wildfires, as it was often that the volunteers would arrive quicker than official firefighting forces. 2. European heat waves. 2022. The heat wave was persistent from June to August 2022, affecting parts of Europe, causing evacuations and a confirmed death toll of 24,501. However, there were some estimates that put it at 61,000. These heat waves were the deadliest meteorological events that happened in all of 2022. The highest temperature recorded was in Portugal at 116 degrees Fahrenheit. The weather in France broke records as the hottest summer the country had ever experienced. Records were also broken in the UK when the temperature hit 100 degrees Fahrenheit for the first time ever. 1. Turkey-Syria earthquake, 2023. On February 6, 2023, a 7.8 earthquake rocked southern and central Turkey and northern and western Syria. It was felt as far as Egypt and the Black Sea coast of Turkey, and the aftershocks were still being felt 3 months after it ended. There was widespread damage in an area of about 140,000 square miles, and to put that into perspective, that's just about the size of Germany. Millions were affected by the destruction. 1.5 million were left homeless after the event. There were 50,783 deaths and 107,204 injured across the affected area, and more than 20% of Turkey's agricultural production was affected. So, have you ever lived through a natural disaster? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this list, you need to check out part 1, 25 worst natural disasters ever recorded. Also, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and check out all our social medias. Links in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you all, and as always, I'll see you next time.